YouTubers and NFL fans everywhere. This is Matt, the NFL Fanatic, giving you my Week 12, 2023 NFL predictions. Well, for the Fanatic, this past week, it was definitely a downturn of a week from the week before when I had a very good winning record on both my against the spread and straight up picks. As I mentioned in my video, I bragged about having being 9 games above 500 against the spread. And unfortunately for me this week, I had to eat 8 of those with how bad my results were. And straight up, I did okay. So let me go through my records last week. So against the spread last week, I went 3-11 against the spread. And straight up, I went 8-6. So that equals 21.4%. And straight up, that equals 57.1%. Definitely a downturn of a week from the week before. I am not proud of it. It was brutal. There was a lot of bad beats, a lot of underdogs that genuinely covered that I did not expect. I didn't expect the Raiders of a rookie to cover. I didn't expect I didn't expect Tommy DeVito to have a breakout game for him as a pro. I didn't expect, and then the other games, I thought the teams were small favorites were going to win. And then I got a bad break with Geno Smith getting hurt and injuring his elbow. And Kansas City having the drops last night. And just turnovers and drops, which cost me that game. So, that was absolutely a brutal week for my against the spread and straight up picks. But fortunately, it's a new week. And it's a 16-game week due to it being the Thanksgiving week and everybody playing games. But I do want to say against the spread and straight up, though, against the spread overall for the year now, through 164 games, I am 81-80-3 against the spread. And straight up now, I am 101-63. So that equals 50.3% against the spread. So I'm still above 500 through 11 weeks. I'm still holding on to my above 500 record. But boy, am I hanging on by a thread. And straight up, though, now I am 101-63. So I'm definitely sliding in a wrong direction. I have to go through the next 3 weeks of buys. And then I'll have the 4-week stretch in the regular season to attempt to boost my record up with 64 straight games. But it is definitely one of those unique aspects to where I'm hoping for a very good bounce back week this week. And I will give you my thoughts on some of the games yesterday or throughout the week. And let me go into my picks now. So on Thursday, Thanksgiving Thursday, and I do want to say to everybody out there that celebrates in America, happy Thanksgiving. Enjoy this time with your friends, your family, and enjoy the family, food, and football. That's always what I always call it, the 3 F's of Thanksgiving. Family, food, and football. And I hope everybody out there has a great, safe, bountiful, and great time this Thanksgiving. And now let me get back to the picks. So, on Thanksgiving Thursday, when the 4-6 Green Bay Packers travel to Detroit to take on the 8-2 Detroit Lions, the Detroit Lions are 7.5 point favorites in this game. I'm going to take Detroit here, minus 7.5, and Detroit straight up. Then the next game, when the 4-7 Washington Commanders go to Dallas to take on the 7-3 Dallas Cowboys, the Dallas Cowboys are 11.5 point favorites in this game. I am going to take Dallas here straight up, but give me Washington plus 11.5. Then the next game, when the 7-3 San Francisco 49ers travel to Seattle to take on the 6-4 Seattle Seahawks, the San Francisco 49ers are 7 point favorites in this game. Give me San Francisco here, minus 7, and San Francisco straight up. Then the first ever Black Friday game on Amazon Prime, and maybe for New York, maybe the New York team gets to pick and have this game every year. But for the first time, when the 7-3 Miami Dolphins travel to New York to take on the 4-6 New York Jets, the Miami Dolphins are 7.5 point favorites in this game, giving the Miami Dolphins here minus 7.5, and the Miami Dolphins straight up. Then on Sunday, for first place in the NFC South in this battle, when the 5-5 New Orleans Saints travel to Atlanta to take on the 4-6 Atlanta Falcons, the great ineptitude of the South. Right now, this game, I've went through this over the last couple days, and I have not seen a line or a number. If anybody could tell me the number, that'd be great. But with that being said, on the website I have, I'm just going to put it at a pick'em for now. And by Sunday, if I find a number, by Sunday, I will put that in. But since it is a pick'em at this moment, with no number, I'm going to take New Orleans here in a pick'em against the spread, and New Orleans straight up. Then the next game, when the 6-4 Pittsburgh Steelers travel to Cincinnati to take on the 5-5 Cincinnati Bengals, the Pittsburgh Steelers are 1 point favorites in this game. I'm going to take in a slight upset here. Give me Cincinnati here, +1, and Cincinnati straight up. Then the next game, when the 1-9 Carolina Panthers travel to Tennessee to take on the 3-7 Tennessee Titans. The Tennessee Titans are 3.5-point favorites in this game. Give me the Tennessee Titans here to win straight up, but I'm going to take the Carolina Panthers +3.5. Then the next game, when the 4-6 Tampa Bay Buccaneers go to Indianapolis to take on the 5-5 Indianapolis Colts. The Indianapolis Colts are 2-point favorites in this game. Give me Indianapolis here -2, and Indianapolis straight up. Then the next game, when the 2-8 New England Patriots go to New York to take on the 3-8 New York Giants. The New England Patriots are 3.5-point favorites in this game. I'm going to take the New York Giants here +3.5, but give me the New England Patriots straight up. Then the next game, when the 7-3 Jacksonville Jaguars go to Houston to take on the 6-4 Houston Texans. The Jacksonville Jaguars are 1-point favorites in this game. Give me Jacksonville here -1 and Jacksonville straight up. Then the next game, when the 6-4 Cleveland Browns go to Denver to take on the 5-5 Denver Broncos. The Denver Broncos are 1.5-point favorites in this game. Give me, in a slight upset here, give me the Cleveland Browns here +1.5 and the Cleveland Browns straight up. Then the next game, when the 4-6 Los Angeles Rams go to Arizona to take on the 2-9 Arizona Cardinals. The Los Angeles Rams are 1-point favorites in this game. Give me the Los Angeles Rams here -1 and the Los Angeles Rams straight up. Then the next game, when the 7-3 Kansas City Chiefs go to Las Vegas to take on the 5-6 Las Vegas Raiders. The Kansas City Chiefs are 9.5-point favorites in this game. Give me the Las Vegas Raiders here +9.5, but I'm going to take the Kansas City Chiefs straight up. Then the next game, when the 6-5 Buffalo Bills go to Philadelphia to take on the 9-1 Philadelphia Eagles. The Philadelphia Eagles are 3.5-point favorites in this game. Give me Philadelphia here -3.5 and Philadelphia straight up. Then the Sunday night game, when the 8-2 Baltimore Ravens go to Los Angeles to take on the 4-6 Los Angeles Chargers. The Baltimore Ravens are 4-point favorites in this game. Give me Baltimore here -4 and Baltimore straight up. And then lastly, in the Monday night game, when the 3-8 Chicago Bears take on the 6-5 Minnesota Vikings. The Minnesota Vikings are 3.5-point favorites in this game. Give me Minnesota here -3.5 and Minnesota straight up. All right, it's time for my quick thoughts on each game. The Detroit Lions over the Green Bay Packers. So the Lions became the first team since the New York Jets in Week 2 of last year to overcome a deficit of 12 points in the final 3 minutes and win in regulation. The Lions also improved to 8-2 for the first time since 1962. So it's a really rare feat. And in that year, the Lions actually, I think, won the NFL championship. They won 11-3 and got to the championship game that year. So, and it was a crazy game because Jared Goff, for the second time in his career, threw 3 interceptions in a game. And the reason why the Lions were able to play that well were the Lions running backs. Gibbs and Montgomery were phenomenal. They had 28 touches for 183 total yards and 2 touchdowns, including Dave Montgomery's rush with about 30 seconds left to win the game. Also, Aiden Hutchinson had a huge defensive play. First sack in 5 games to force the game-winning fumble. Unfortunately for me, as someone to pick on the spread, I wish that Bears player didn't kick it out of the end zone, but because that got a safety instead of a touchdown, and I could have covered, but that's a whole different story. But also, I think one of the key things that has been impressive is the Lions have the 5th best rushing defense in the league. So that defensive line has done a very good job limiting, yards in terms of on the ground. And fortunately, the reason why I'm going with the Lions is, look, I want to give Jordan Love a lot of credit. For the first time in 30 games, outside of Aaron Rodgers, Jordan Love threw for 300 yards. First time in 30 games, almost 3 years. The Packers had not had a 300-yard passer, and he did it against the Chargers, though I do want to put a little damper on it. He did play the Chargers defense, which is one of the worst in the league. So, again, good for him. But it didn't really, impress me that much because everybody can move the ball in the Chargers. But also, I want to shout out Jaden Reed for getting his first rushing touchdown of his career. I believe he had 3 rushes for 46 yards. And since for the first time in 7 games, the Packers did not commit an offensive turnover, which was massive. And also Christian Watson, since his first game being active in Week 4, he caught a big touchdown. And just probably in typical Charger fashion, unfortunately, when the Chargers needed to have the ball and needed to get in position, on the last 2 drives when the Packers took the lead, they held the Chargers to -4 total yards. Even though Quinn Johnson's still probably, really mad at himself for dropping the game-tying field goal catch at least. And the big reason why I'm also going with the Lions is that Aaron Jones and Emmanuel Wilson, both their starting running back and their backup running back, even though A.J. Dillon's still there, they both got hurt. Aaron Jones, from what I've heard, has not suffered a significant injury, but it's going to be an injury that will be impactful, and it'll probably be out, and I think Emmanuel Wilson will be out. So if they can limit A.J. Dillon, and with that Lions secondary the way it's played, I think they hold on and easily win this game, because the Lions defense, even though it's had its flaws, and I do think, the Packers can take some advantage of that. The Packers don't have the weapons the Chargers do, and I don't think Jordan Love has the feet that Justin Fields does. So I think the Lions defense should be able to hold on and play pretty well to win. And I don't expect Jared Goff to have another 3-pick game. It's very rare that he does that. So, should be an interesting game with the Lions over the last 3 years with Dan Campbell at Thanksgiving have gotten better and have been more competitive in this Thanksgiving game. And I feel like for the first time they are going to win this handily and celebrate a 9-2 record, it's been a while since the Lions have been above 500 this early in the season. So, but that's why I like Detroit here, -7.5, and Detroit straight up. The next game, the Dallas Cowboys over the Washington Commanders. This one is fairly easy because the Cowboys have been just rolling over a lot of bad teams. Micah Parsons had a career high with 2.5 sacks, and Deron Bland got his 4th pick 6 of the year. So you can make a point that Deron Bland could be Defensive Player of the Year. Who would have thought that Trayvon Diggs' backup would be that dominant? But he's held to a phenomenal passer rating. He is the 4th player in NFL history to have 4 pick 6s in a single season. And, there are some Hall of Famers like Ken Houston, Ronnie Lott, and Dick Harris that only have 4 pick 6s in their careers. And I'm not saying Deron Bland's going to be a Hall of Famer, but he's had himself a sensational year. Also, I'm going to shout out Tony Pollard for his first rushing touchdown since week 1. But here is the problem for the Dallas Cowboys, okay? Is that, look, the Dallas Cowboys have 7 wins. All 7 wins have been against teams that are under 500. And 6 of those 7 wins where they've blown them out by 20-plus points. That's 14-34. And if you took the Chargers in there, their 7 wins have been against teams that are combined 18-40. Yeah, all 7 of their wins have been against teams that are combined 18-40. They've handled, besides the Chargers game where it was close, which the Chargers typically do, and no offense to Chargers fans, like you mentioned here, just keeping important in every game so far. But this is what the Cowboys have done. They have kicked tomato cans out of the, if it was a field goal kicking out, they have hit home runs against every tomato can when they step up to bat. And unfortunately, the Washington Commanders, after what happened on Sunday, showed that they are more tomato can than frisky wildcard team. Because the Washington Commanders on Sunday had 9 sacks against the New York Giants offensive line. And they were the first team since 1984 to lose a game by double digits and had a 9-sack game. But the reason why they lost by double digits was for the first time since week 4 of the 2014 season, the Commanders had 6 offensive turnovers in one game. You are never going to win a game with that happening. Also, that offensive line is terrible. The Giants also got 5 more sacks on them, and Sam Howell's been the most sacked quarterback in the league. And look, the Commanders have a bottom 3 defensive points per game and yards per game. So trading away Chase Young and Montez Sweat, really not that impactful, really not that great, in my opinion. And I just want to say, I think everybody in Washington will be gone. Maybe Mayhew stays. But I even want to say, Eric Bieniemy deserves some heat for this, because in the 9 games outside of the Giants, who have been one of the worst fundamental teams in the league, he's averaged about 23.3 points per game in 9 games outside of the Giants. In the 2 games against the Giants, 13 points. And if you're as great an offensive mind with the talent they have on offense, you got to put up more points against the Giants. The Raiders put up 30 points with Aiden O'Connell. Think about that. The Raiders, who have a rookie quarterback that's been pretty much bad, they put up 30 points on this Giants defense. So, that is definitely a low point for Eric Bieniemy in that offense. And look, the reason why I took the 11.5 is that I do think the Commanders do have an offense, and Sam Howell in the division games outside of the Giants has played pretty well. So I don't think he'll play as bad as he did against the Giants, but I don't think he'll play as well as he did against the Eagles. So when you average that out, I think that holds up to at least holding the game within 11 points. I think the game is an easy win for the Cowboys, who are riding an 11-game home win streak going into this 3-game homestand. So that'll be very intriguing. But I'm going to take Dallas here, rolling defensively. They usually kick the crap out of tomato cans. So 8 of their wins will be against teams that are going to be 25 and 48. So, again, and if they blow them out, that's good. But the problem is going to be once they have to play a legitimate team, maybe like Seattle. I think, Seattle's kind of on the fringe of that, they're not a tomato can, but they're not as great, as dominant as I personally think. But that's just me. Like, the Cowboys are not going to get any credit for beating up the tomato cans. They will have kicked 8 tomato cans, hit 8 home runs against tomato cans. And, again, that's credit to get them 3rd best in the conference. But they lost to the Niners. They lost to the Eagles. They still have to play the Eagles again. Like, they have to play the Dolphins. They have to play the Bills. More competitive teams in a better conference. I think they could win both those games. But that's where you're going to see the Cowboys get their medal and say, how good is this team actually, against quality teams? So that's why I like Dallas here straight up, but the Washington Commanders plus 11.5. The next game, the San Francisco 49ers over the Seattle Seahawks. Look, I want to shout out Brock Purdy, the first quarterback since Joe Montana back in 1989 to have a perfect passer rating. He's also the 3rd youngest quarterback to have a perfect passer rating. And he's had now 10 starts of his first 15 with 100-plus quarterback rating. So he has been sensational. They are 7-0 when everybody finishes a game, which is impressive. And to me, I think the other thing that's been impressive with the Niners is they have had 9 sacks and 6 turnovers over the last 2 games since Steve Wilkes came down from the booth. They have played incredibly well. He has been, they have forced turnovers. They had 2 significant defensive injuries in the back end with Huafunga. And I know I botched his first name horribly, so I apologize to anybody out there if you can. But Huafunga, their all-pro safety, has torn his ACL, and he is now out for the year. While Charvarius Ward, their probably best other secondary player, left the game hurt. He was able to walk off on his own power, so I don't know if he'll play on Thursday, but that's good because he's probably their most best corner out of the rest of their secondary. So that was massive. But it's one of those things to where when I look at this Niners team, because that was those are the 2 first significant defensive injuries I've seen all year for that side of the ball. But when I look at the Seahawks, this is just one of those things to where the Seahawks are reeling. With Jason Myers, Geno left after Donald hit him right in the elbow and he has some pretty significant nerve pain. Though I did hear that Pete Carroll did say that that Geno should be able to play, which is huge. But I am going to take the Niners because I just feel like the Niners, with this roster, with Purdy the way he's playing and how he's rolling, is just going to be better than the Seattle team. Jason Myers, he had made 15 straight field goals, and Geno had come back in the game, drove him down, to get into a makeable field goal spot, and Jason Myers missed. And I know Jason Myers has made 60-yard field goals, but you might call me petty, but I blame Geno Smith more. Because if you're going to get into a spot like that, you got to get a better spot for Jason Myers to make a better kick. Okay, and I know that Drew Lock threw the game-losing pick, but Geno came back in there, and I blame Geno at the end for not doing enough to get them into a better kicking spot. But hey, that's Geno Smith, a mid guy on his best day. So, but I do want to shout out 2 Seattle Seahawks though. Tyler Lockett on Sunday became the 2nd all-time leader in receiving yards and receptions for the franchise. Only Steve Largent has more yards and touchdowns, and I do not think Tyler Lockett will be with Seattle long enough to catch that number. And Bobby Wagner became the 3rd linebacker in NFL history with 100-plus tackles in 12 straight years, joining Derek Brooks and London Fletcher. So, again, a first-ballot Hall of Famer, one of the great Seattle defenders of all time. Arguably, I would say just for his tenure, his consistency, the greatest Seattle defender of all time. And job well done to him. And look, the Seahawks have lost 3 straight games to the Niners. Brock Purdy in his second career start went up there, played a very good game. I am kind of concerned about the defense, but with how Geno's been playing, They're probably not going to have Kenneth Walker III, who had an oblique injury, so it's going to be Charbonnet taking most of the load. I just think the Niners, they are playing with some confidence. They are playing with some momentum. I am concerned about that secondary. So it will be interesting to see with Njigba, with Lockett, with Metcalf, if they can expose that secondary with Hufanga now being out there. But they don't really like to use their tight ends as much. And I just think with where the Seahawks are and where the Niners are, I think the Niners just roll consistently through this game to get to an 8-3 record and still make their claim, in my opinion, as the second best team in the NFC. So that's why I like San Francisco here, -7, San Francisco straight up. The next game, the Miami Dolphins over the New York Jets. This is one to where the Miami Dolphins defense has been sensational. Over the last 2 games, they shut out their opponents in the second half. And for the first time all year, the Miami Dolphins did not score a touchdown in the second half, which is amazing thinking about, to me, how bad I thought the Raiders were heading into this game. And objectively for them to hold on through the game, and Aiden O'Connell, if he didn't turn the ball over 3 times, I think that the Raiders could have won. If they had a better quarterback, and they have a better quarterback on the roster, but I'll get to that in a second. If they had a better quarterback, they probably would have won that game. I also do want to shout out, though, Jalen Ramsey, his 3rd career game with 2 interceptions. Tyreek Hill is leading the league in receiving yards and touchdowns. Not a surprise. He is now the 5th player in NFL history, 1,200 receiving yards in his first 10 games of the season. So the 2,000-yard mark is attainable. And I think against their opponents, he can definitely do that. I think he will get the Offensive Player of the Year. I do not think he will get the MVP just because I feel like there are maybe some other players on better teams with losses that are going to drive that forward. But this game, after what people saw with the Jets and the news that over the last 48 hours people are talking about with the Jets, in that, look, the Jets have had 1 touchdown drive of more than 1 play since October 1st, 1 touchdown in their last 14 quarters, 1 touchdown in their last 45 possessions, and they're averaging 13 points a game. So when they brought in Timmy Boyle, because now he is the quarterback for the Jets, and I know if you've watched my videos, I have pounded Robert Saleh to death, and I do want to give him, for about 5 seconds, a little bit of credit for finally making the change. But however, I do have some more criticism for Robert Saleh, so, not so fast, as Lee Corso would say. My bashing of Robert Saleh is not done. Because Robert Saleh, Joe Douglas, and Daniel Hackett made a mistake by not having... They have Trevor Siemian, who is now the backup quarterback. Trevor Siemian is better than anything Zach Wilson's ever done, and he's better than anything Tim Boyle will ever do. And the fact that they are saying, hey, we got to put Aaron Rodgers' butt buddy, as our quarterback, because we don't want to put Trevor Siemian, a guy who is fundamentally better than the guys that we have, is just an indictment on Robert Saleh, Daniel Hackett, and Joe Douglas as incompetent morons that are running the Jets organization. The only individual that has any sense that's running the Jets organization is Aaron Rodgers. Woody Johnson doesn't even have that. Because it's like, you can't be that stupid every single time you're out there. Every single decision, you can't be this incompetent. That even with Trevor, that you have Trevor Siemian right there. And you're going with, let's go with Tim Boyle, who's had 3 touchdowns and 12 interceptions throughout his career. I'm happy they benched Zach, because Zach is the white Jamarcus Russell. He's in that category of a bust. But Robert Saleh still is a moron and is still incompetent in every decision that he makes, because he has made another bad one by going with Tim Boyle. You can give him credit for making the decision to finally bench Zach Wilson. Took about two months too late. But he made the wrong decision by going with Tim Boyle, because Trevor Siemian should be starting for the Jets for the rest of the year, because he's the best option that gives him a chance to win. So, and also the Jets have offensive line injury problems. Mekhi Becton left with an ankle injury. He had an MRI. I haven't seen the MRI. It's the most injured offensive line in the entire league. And I just think with this offense, with Tim Boyle at the helm, it's better because it's not Zach Wilson, and people like me are going to accept that, and we need to give Tim Boyle a little bit of grace. But the Dolphins defense, if it's been this dominant against a rookie, dominant against the Chiefs, offense, or the lack thereof, they should be able to roll this Jets team and put the Jets out of their misery, just so Aaron Rodgers does not have to come back or feel like he has any chance to come back, because this Jets team is not going to make the playoffs. And Robert Saleh, Joe Douglas, and Nathaniel Hackett all deserve to be fired for the incompetence on display that they've shown for Hackett for 2 years of being the Broncos coach and Jets coordinator, and Saleh and Douglas for Douglas's inept 5 years and Saleh's 3. So, but that's why I like Miami here, minus 7.5, and Miami straight up. The next game, the New Orleans Saints over the Atlanta Falcons. Talk about NFC South football at its best, and I say that very sarcastically. Because this game, look, the Saints and Falcons, both 3-4 in one-score games. Derek Carr suffered a concussion and a shoulder injury in the game against the Vikings. So that's a significant problem there. But I feel like with this game, the Saints have the better defense in points and yards, and that's what I'm going to roll with. Look, the Saints' offense has not been great. If you look at all the skill position players the Saints have, Michael Thomas, Chris Olave, Rashid Shaheed, Juwan Johnson, Adam Troutman, Juwan Johnson, another tight end. The player that has the most touchdowns on this team is Taysom Hill. No other Saints skill player has more than 4 touchdowns rushing and receiving combined. That's amazing. It shows you how inept Pete Carmichael is without Sean Payton. That, Taysom Hill is leading all the players in getting touchdowns. The utility player in the Saints. And look, I think the Saints, whoever wins this division, it's just going to happen like last year, where you're going to, the fifth team in the wild card spot, in the NFC, you have 2 phenomenal positions. You can either be the number 1 seed and have home field advantage, which is great, or you can be the 5 seed and have an easy win against an inept NFC South team. So right now, if you're the Dallas Cowboys, you're in a good spot either way. Because you're either going to be the best wildcard team in the bunch and get to beat up the NFC South once again for 2 years in a row, or, if you're the Eagles, if they lose the division, that's the best spot you can have. Because should be an easy game. But I'm going with the Saints because they have a better defense, they have a better competent quarterback, and I will take the Saints regardless if Derek Carr can play or not. And I know the injuries to Michael Thomas and Marshawn Lattimore are significant. And they're likely going to be out for some time. Michael Thomas, that's not a shock. Lattimore, bit of a tough thing because he's had some injuries over the last couple of years. But they're playing the Falcons, who do not have a quarterback. Arthur Smith did say that they have decided to go back to the immortal Desmond Ridder, their second-round pick from last year. But my question is, why did you not go with Desmond Ridder to begin with for those other 2 games? Yeah, both quarterbacks have not played well. They've averaged less than 194 yards passing per game, and they have the 21st amount of passing yards. They have the 7th most rushing yards of the team, so again, that makes sense because Arthur Smith's background with Tennessee. But it's just if you were going to go into that game and just give Taylor Heineke 2 games where he did not play well, I think they threw for 90 yards combined against the Cardinals, but he injured his hamstring through the crucial pick against the Vikings. Why wouldn't you have that Desmond Ridder play those 2 games? It was stupid to bench him for a 2-game span if you're going to put him back in, because it just makes Arthur Smith look more incompetent than his mustache and stupid than his mustache makes him look. So, again, could the Falcons win this game? Sure. The Falcons and Saints, it's an ugly game. It's ugly NFC South football. Both quarterbacks, Jameis could turn it over and give the Falcons more opportunities. Heineke and Ridder Desmond Ridder could not make a play. Desmond Ridder's second in the league in turnovers this year. It's just bad football, and in this case, I'm just going to go with the better defense and the better coaching and the more consistent coach, and I think that's the Saints. It's going to be a bad game. I'm happy it's a pick 'em. And again, I'll probably take the Saints. It's going to be a slight favorite. I'll take the Saints slightly. But I'm going to trust the better coach, the better quarterback situation, and I trust the Saints to do their side of the ball better than I trust the Falcons on theirs. So that's why I think New Orleans here in a pick 'em, and New Orleans straight up. The next game, the Cincinnati Bengals over the Pittsburgh Steelers. Through the first half, or through the first, quarter of the game against the Browns, Kenny Pickett threw for a grand total of 11 yards. They had, with sack yardage, so let me put that in perspective. If you take the yards out for the yards, the net yards, it was 11. The Steelers, through the half, had 66 total yards of offense. Jalen Warren had a 74-yard run, which was the biggest play any team had on the day on Sunday. But that shows you how inept the offense was. They had 96 total yards, through 3 quarters. And that is why, and this is one thing I can, I guess, do since I'm doing my video on a Tuesday, Matt Canada has been fired as the Pittsburgh Steelers offensive coordinator. So anybody that's watching this video, if you have not heard yet, or when it comes up, Matt Canada has been fired, and they will be announcing soon a new offensive coordinator. And I think it's the right move, even though it is a rare move. It is the first time since 1941 that the Pittsburgh Steelers have changed coordinators in the middle of a season. So that shows you how rare it is that they make a move like this. But it's just so bad offensively because Anthony Richardson, who's been out for weeks and the season with a shoulder injury, and Kenny Pickett have each thrown a touchdown since, I believe they said, since October 1st. Since October 1st, I think Pickett and Richardson have both thrown like 2 touchdowns in like the past 2 months. Anthony hasn't played games. Kenny's played in every single game. He's only thrown like 1 to 2 touchdowns. That shows you how inept the Pittsburgh offense was with him and Matt Canada. So who knows if the coordinator makes a change? It'll make an impact. I think it's very much like Tim Boyle to Zach Wilson, where like you can put a new guy in there and it's the same weapons, same kind of style. If he was under the Canada tree, maybe he has a different mentality. Who knows? But the reason why I'm going with the Bengals is, look, I'm not happy with the Bengals' defense. In 3 of the last 4 games, they have given up 470 yards per game, which is not great. And T. Higgins being out is big, but the most significant injury the Bengals had was Joe Burrow tearing a ligament in his right wrist, and he is now out for the rest of the season. And the Bengals are the second worst running defense in the league, so definitely for Pittsburgh with Jalen and Najee, that should help. But I saw enough out of Jake Browning, former Washington quarterback, that even with the change in coordinator, with the whole week to try to make some adjustments, I just trust the Bengals' offensive Browning to maybe make a few more plays. Maybe T. Higgins gets back. Joe Mixon is 12th in the league in rushing. And I just think the ineptitude of the Pittsburgh offense against a Bengals defense that is reeling, but maybe this is the offense that is right for the taking in this regard. I just feel like the Bengals can win this game. I think Jake Browning has done a little bit more in what I saw than what Pittsburgh's shown throughout the whole year. Would I be surprised if Pittsburgh won? No, because Jake Browning in his first start. But to be fair, I thought the same thing with Dorian Thompson-Robinson. So the only advantage Pittsburgh might have is they're playing a much weaker defense than the Bengals and not the Browns. But I'll take the Bengals because I think Jake Browning with his legs and his arms should be able to make a couple more plays than Kenny Pickett will, even with the new offensive coordinator change. So that's why I like Cincinnati here, +1, and Cincinnati straight up. The next game, the Tennessee Titans over the Carolina Panthers. This is one to where, look, Bryce Young has thrown three pick sixes this year. I think that leads the league. Deron Bland, as I mentioned before, has 4. So, also the Panthers really have no offense. Bryce Young in 7 of the 9 games he started this year has thrown for under 215 yards. Adam Thielen had 74 yards receiving against the Cowboys. Nobody else on the entire team, the running backs, nobody on the skill positions, nobody else had more than 2 receptions and more than 20 yards. The Panthers have attempted the 5th most passes in the league, and they have the 4th fewest passing yards. So that shows you how inept this Carolina Panthers team is. I think Frank Reich, who, as everybody knows, I'm not a fan of, Frank Reich is displaying how inept he was through his coaching tenure, and I honestly believe he does not deserve to be a head coach. And even though here's the thing, David Tepper, the Panthers owner, he's on one of the hottest seats right now. I do not think it is right to fire Frank Reich after 1 year, because he did, just to be fair, these 6-4 Texans lost to the 1-9 Panthers. That actually did happen this year. It's going to be crazy when you look at the end of the year of how both those teams are going, but that actually did happen. So he did get a win. And I always say for a new coach, retread or not, if you get 1 win, you should be good for the next year. But it looks like David Tepper is probably going to fire Frank Reich and his staff, and I do not believe that bad coach, that overrated coach that everybody in Philadelphia loved, he doesn't deserve a 3rd opportunity. He's not good at his job. How can you take the number 1 pick with the talent that you were given, and why can't you make him look like he's made any progress? He's objectively, I feel like, the worst quarterback in the league. So far. Like, again, he has room to grow, but, like, it's just that bad. And, look, the Titans have not played that great over the last few games, But Will Levis, at least over the last 3 games, has thrown 2 touchdowns. And 2 touchdowns, 2 picks. He's been sacked, 10 times, which isn't great. And Derrick Henry was held under 40 rushing yards in back-to-back games, which is very rare for him to not make that kind of impact on the ground. And also I do want to shout out Jeffrey Simmons for his first career touchdown for the defensive tackle, pulling out his best Refrigerator Perry imitation. But it's just something to where, the Titans, I've seen Will Levis in this team. They got whipped defensively by the Jags. I don't think the Panthers offense can do that. I think the Titans, all they need to score is about 14 to 16 points. I think that Titans defense, if they shut down Chuba Hubbard with how bad that offensive line with their pass rushers, they can win that game with scoring 14 to 16 points. And I believe that's what they're going to do. And I've seen more promise out of Will Levis in, the 4 games that he's played than I've seen out of Bryce Young through the entire year. And, could the game be interesting? I'm going to do that because, again, it is a rookie. And to be fair, the only win the Panthers have this year was against a rookie. So, that's why I gave Carolina the plus 3.5 because, honestly, I don't know. I think, the Panthers could confuse Will Levis and make him have a tough time, and that could be enough to hold on to win. But I just think, what team's been fundamentally better through most of the year, or better at times, it's the Titans. So that's why I'm going with them. It's an ugly game, but the Titans have been able to score a bit more, have been able to show more offensive flashes, and I just look at the Panthers and go, they've been able to show jack squat through most of the year. So, but that's why I like Tennessee are straight up, Carolina plus 3.5. The next game, the Indianapolis Colts over the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. This is a game to where I am taking the Colts based on the coaching matchup here. I feel like the Bucs have more talent. And look, when the Bucs can't force a turnover, they've lost in their 2 games. They lost by an average of 13.5 points. And 7 of the last 8 games, under Dave Canales, their offensive coordinator, they have not been able to rush as a team for over 81 yards. They cannot generate a running game at all. Baker's played okay. He did have 2 he had 2 turnovers that were crucial, and for me, they weren't going to win the game, off those plays if he would have made them, but they would have helped me at least cover the 10.5 point spread. So I am ticked off at Baker and Dave Canales for screwing me out of that spread pick, but I digress. I also do want to shout out 2 defensive players for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Antoine Winfield had 16 total tackles on Sunday against the San Francisco 49ers, and Yaya Diaby, a rookie, he's had 3 sacks in his last 4 games, so he's definitely generating a good amount of pressure and getting to the quarterback at a good rate, so he's showing his merit for a rookie that he can be a decent rookie. And this is one of those things to where, you have Godwin, you have Evans, you have Odd, but Tristan Wirfs went down, Lavonte David went down, I think Jamel Dean went down, one of their corners, so they're dealing with injuries. I don't know if they're going to play, but I trust the Colts here in this spot. The Colts have forced a defensive turnover in every single game. I thought that was a cool fact. They have the 10th best rushing offense, and they have found 2 decent wide receivers in Michael Pittman and Josh Downs, who through the year so far have 50% of their receptions and 52% of the receiving yards. So it's like a sadder version of, for me, a sadder version for me of the Dolphins and Eagles. The Colts are those receivers in that kind of aspect is it's like a sadder version of the Eagles and the Dolphins, to where you have the 2 genuine receivers who take up about half the yardage and receptions, but it's Michael Pittman and Josh Downs, so it's not Tyreek and Jalen or AJ and Devontae. Not nearly as flashy or sexy as enough names, but it's kind of a nice little twist when you look at the Colts there. And they have the 10th best rushing offense in the league with Gardner, with Taylor, with Moss. I like what Steichen's been doing. Though the Colts have lost 3 or 4 to Tampa Bay in this series so far, I think the Colts, with their coaching, Steichen will be able to out-coach Bowles a little bit, and I feel like the Colts should be able to win on a gritty, kind of effective day through their play. So, and again, I will say this. If the Colts make the playoffs, I know people have Mike Tomlin, Kevin O'Connell, Kevin Stefanski, D'Amico Ryans as Coach of the Year. Mine would be Shane Steichen. I think what Shane Steichen has been able to do with a backup quarterback, and a bunch of mid-receivers, and a backup running back in Zach Moss, and to get them to 6-5, is just would be incredibly insane. If they make the playoffs, that has to be, I think, the Coach of the Year. Because other things and other teams, you could disqualify some of the other people. Tomlin's had a phenomenal defense that's better than the Colts. D'Amico got C.J. Stroud. Nobody thought C.J. Stroud would be this good, but he's much better than what Gardner Minshew is, and he's better than what Richardson could be. Could have been. Kevin O'Connell, he has some talent on the weapons, but also they may not win as many games. Stefanski has a phenomenal defensive side of the ball. So, everything like that, it just points to Steichen in a way. So, but that's why I like Indianapolis here -2, Indianapolis straight up. The next game, the New England Patriots over the New York Giants. This is one of those ugly games to where, objectively, I guess if you're the Patriots, you're rooting to lose this game. Because the Giants, by beating the Commanders, have dropped themselves to 5th in the picking slot. So it's like, for New England, I don't know if they catch Carolina, because Carolina could lose out the rest of the way. But if they get number 2, they're going to be in a very good spot. And, again, they have the recipe to do it. They have Zappe and Jones have combined for the 3rd most interceptions in the league for their quarterbacks. And the two best things that the Pats defense has been able to do is that they've given up 84 fewer rushing yards in 4 of their last 5 games. And they have the 7th best red zone defense in the NFL. So, fun fact here. So here's how crazy it is for Tommy DeVito, the Soprano ripoff from Cedar Grove, New Jersey, would actually film the show. Tommy DeVito, in 4 games, even with the negative 9-yard passing game, he has the same amount of passing touchdowns as Zach Wilson, who got benched. Tommy DeVito did that in 4 games. And just a crazy thing is also as well, Daniel Jones, in 60 starts, had 3 passing touchdowns only 3 times. Tommy DeVito? He's already done it twice. Or in 2 starts. He's already done it. So, and look, I do want to shout out Darius Slade. He did catch a big touchdown. That's his 2nd touchdown over the past 2 years. And Kayvon Thibodeau, who has been maligned very well for, some of the plays in some of the games. He does have 10.5 sacks. So, again, so you could argue it's the competition thing. He beat up the Jets' offensive line. He beat up the Commanders' offensive line for most of those sacks. So, that's not a great, standard of consistency. But 10.5 sacks is 5th. So he is showing in the 2nd year that he can be a very good pass rusher when he's motivated to do it. But to me, the reason why I'm going with the New England Patriots here is for one simple reason. Tommy DeVito is a rookie. Bill Belichick is 25-8 all-time against rookie quarterbacks. And I don't think Tommy DeVito is going to play as bad as he did against the Jets. But I don't think he's going to play well enough against this Pats defense to where, it's going to be a low-scoring game. And I think Mac or Bailey, whoever it is, should be able to make enough plays against this Giants team to win this game based off Belichick's defensive smarts. It'd be probably the most embarrassing loss of Bill Belichick's career if he lost to the immortal Tommy DeVito in a game against the Giants. And you could say, for the Patriots fans, though, in a way, that's probably the better thing to do because it solidifies them as having the number 2 pick, or getting that 2-3 pick range. But again, I'm going to take the Giants here on the spread because I think the Giants have some better talent, and Tommy DeVito over at least 4 weeks has shown that he can actually maybe play quarterback at an okay level. But with Belichick going against the rookie, how bad Tommy DeVito's been, I just think the Patriots get this victory. I'll take the Giants plus 3.5 because I do think the Giants have more talent, but the coaching outdoes the talent in this regard due to DeVito, and I do think the Patriots win this game. So that's why I like the New York Giants are plus 3.5 and New England straight up. The next game, the Jacksonville Jaguars over the Houston Texans. This is one to where I'm going against the grain here because, look, I'm going to shout out Trevor Lawrence, 4 total touchdowns against Tennessee Titans, had a great bounce-back game. Also, Calvin Ridley had 2 touchdowns for the first time since week 2 of 2020. The Jags, also to their credit, still forced the most turnovers in the league. And Stroud, who has been phenomenal, he's had the 4th most passing yards as a rookie. He's also had back-to-back 300-yard games, back-to-back 300-yard games, which is incredible. And the Texans' defense, even though Stroud threw a career high in turnovers with 3 picks, they did hold the Cardinals to 1 of 4 on 4th down, which basically was the difference in the game. And the Texans had their longest win streak since 2018. When they won 9 straight games, they won 3 straight games. So it's not a lot, but it's still something. And look, I'm going to take the Jags just because I feel like with Stroud, I think he's able to get a couple turnovers. And look, I am going against the grain here because the Texans have won 21 of the last 26 games against the Jaguars over the years. But at least I know that Trevor Lawrence has won a game in Houston last time he was there. And I do think Stroud, like, there's just a part of me going with the Jags. They know the importance of this game because if they lose this game, I think they actually lose the AFC South. And to me, I think that is crucial for their development, long term. So, I think the Jags, look, they forced the most turnovers in the league. CJ's coming off a 3-turnover game. I don't know if he's going to have 3 turnovers, but I'm going to take the Jags here in this game because I trust that defense. I just trust that roster a little bit more at this point in Houston, and I think they win to hold off the Texans for the South, and they will probably win the South because of that, because of this win. So that's why I like Jacksonville -1 and Jacksonville straight up. The next game, the Cleveland Browns over the Denver Broncos. The Cleveland Browns have won 5 of their last 6 games and scored the game-winning points in the final 2 minutes in 4 of those 5 wins. And they have averaged 18 points per game defensively, the best since 2005. Dustin Hopkins has been arguably their best offensive player, 26 of 29 field goals this year. Very clutch. Myles Garrett is leading the league in sacks at 13. I actually think he should be an MVP candidate. He's the best player on this team, the most consistent, the driving force of this defense, which is the best in the league. And the Browns can win without a quarterback. And to me, I think when you look at this game, I'm just trusting the Browns defense here. I think it's something where I think the Browns defense is going to cause more havoc for Russell Wilson than what the Broncos defense will for Dorian Thompson-Robinson, who did not play well. He threw a pick, but he threw for 160 yards. He outplayed Kenny Pickett, which is a low bar. But, and look, the Broncos defense, it's had a tremendous turnaround. 12 turnovers forced in the past 3 games. That's 4 games. The defense has given up 22 or fewer points in 5 straight games. Russell Wilson leads the league in fourth-quarter comebacks and game-winning drives. He also has the best touchdown-interception ratio in the league and one of the 4 best quarterback ratings, not the stupid ESPN QBR stuff. And they were able to win that game with a season low in rushing yards. So, that's telling that Russell Wilson was able to carry the offense with very little help from the running game. And the Broncos, fun fact, they have snapped the 2 longest active win streaks in the NFL this year. The Vikings had a 5-game winning streak, beat by Russell Wilson and the Broncos. The Chiefs had a 6-game winning streak, beat by Russell Wilson and the Broncos. So those are 2 significant wins in their cap. But unfortunately, where their winning streak at 4, I believe it stops here at home against the Browns, just because I have the confidence of the Browns defense causing more problems and frustration against Russell than Russell being able to move the ball, or Dorian Thompson in that running game should be able to move the ball better against that Broncos defense. So that's why I like Cleveland here, +1.5, and Cleveland straight up. The next game, the Los Angeles Rams over the Arizona Cardinals. Look, the Rams, Royce Freeman had a career high in rushing yards. The Rams defense has given up over 300 yards in offense to every opponent besides the Seahawks. And the Cardinals have been most competitive in most games. Aaron Donald injured Geno, and Cooper Kupp got a significant ankle injury. Or he has a low ankle sprain, I'm sorry. But in this game, like this is one of those games where both the teams, the Cardinals coming back, they haven't looked bad with Kyler. They've been competitive in most of the games this year. They were able to convert a couple more of those 4th downs. They're probably going to beat the Texans. And there was a part of me saying that, with Kyler there, maybe they could beat the Rams because the Rams have not played that well outside of Seattle. But I just like with the last game in LA with Josh Dobbs, I'm just going to go with the better quarterback. I think Stafford, even with Cooper being down, which is big, Puka Nacua now will get a bigger role in the offense. And I think that with Tyler Higbee in that offense with McVay should be able to win this game definitively, in my opinion. So, it's one of those things to where when you look at this game, I'm just going to go with the better quarterback. I think Stafford outplays Murray, and that should be enough. Could Kyler and the Cardinals win this game? Sure. Stafford's banged up, and if he gets hurt and gets knocked out, and you have to put in Carson Wentz, I don't think that would be enough to beat Kyler on, short week notice. But I think with the Rams going to Arizona, they usually win in Arizona a good amount. And I think the Rams just hold on with their quarterback to win this one. So that's why I like the LA Rams here. -1, the LA Rams straight up. The next game, the Kansas City Chiefs over the Las Vegas Raiders. The Kansas City defense has been sensational. The second-ranked defense in points, fourth in yards. But their offense has been pathetic in the fact that they have the lowest scoring offense in the second half in the league, averaging 5.3 points per game. And the Chiefs' offense, through the second half of the entire season, have only scored 5 touchdowns in the second half this year. Only 5 touchdowns in 10 games. So that is a massive problem because that shows you that they cannot generate anything. And if you take out Travis Kelce, who's had back-to-back under 50-yard games, Mahomes cannot connect with weapons outside maybe Rasheen Rice, who's in and out. And I think that's going to be a massive problem that will cause them to, move forward, to getting to a Super Bowl. And for the first time in Patrick Mahomes' tenure, they may not have the conference championship game in Kansas City. It may go to Baltimore, it may go to Jacksonville, but it may be somewhere else. I think if it was in Baltimore, it's a very 50-50 game that the Chiefs might lose. But, we'll see. But the Chiefs, though, are 17-3 against the Raiders in their last 20 outings. And the Raiders, I love Antonio Pierce, and he put up a sensational effort, but Aiden O'Connell just sucks. And here's the thing I would just say to all the Raiders management. You know how you were yelling about Jimmy Garoppolo? That, Jimmy Garoppolo's a turnover machine. Jimmy Garoppolo can't, he's washed. We had the best quarterback in the room, and that's Aiden O'Connell. Jimmy Garoppolo had 9 turnovers and 6 starts. Do you know how many Aiden O'Connell has? 9 in 4. So Aiden O'Connell, where everybody praised in the preseason, is this guy oh man, he had the best passer rating in the NFL in the preseason. So did Kenny Pickett. And he sucks more than Kenny Pickett does, which is saying something. So, for all the Raider Jimmy G haters out there, and again, I defended Jimmy G because, again, Jimmy G was a winner. But Aiden O'Connell is not the answer. The Raiders do not have a quarterback, and I actually do hope some of those Raider fans apologize to Jimmy Garoppolo because they all thought Aiden O'Connell might have been something. They wanted something different. And you know what? I will just tell you this. Jimmy Garoppolo would have won that game against the Dolphins. I think he would have. And for the Raiders this year, it's sad. They have not won a game, and they have done this now 5 times where they've given 3 offensive turnovers. So, again, I'm going to take the Raiders at +9.5 because, look, they were able to cover a 11.5 point spread against a better Dolphins offense. And with the Chiefs right now, if they can, the Raiders defense can show up, they will play a great game. They will be motivated. I do not think they win because it's Aiden O'Connell, but I do think they can cover the 9.5 point spread with their defense. So, should be an ugly game, but at the end of the day, Patrick Mahomes and them should be able to bounce back against the poorest Raider team that, again, Antonio Pierce will be credited to be competitive, but it may not matter at the end of the day. So, but that's why I like Kansas City are straight up, but the Las Vegas Raiders +9.5. The next game, the Philadelphia Eagles over the Buffalo Bills. This is one to where, look, Buffalo scored on 6 of their first 8 drives against the Jets. Rasul Douglas became the first Buffalo Bill since 1998 to tally 2 picks and a fumble recovery in the same game. It's the most complete game the Bills have played since Week 3. The defense is 4th in points and 10th in yards. But it was the New York Jets with Zach Wilson and Tim Boyle. They did exactly what they needed to do. They played well, but they're now playing the best team in the NFL, and the Eagles. The Eagles are the best run defense in the league. They're playing one of the best running teams in the league. Jalen Hurts has 35 rushing touchdowns over 4 years. That's the most over a player's first 4 seasons. The Eagles have won 4 of their last 5 against the Bills. And it's just something to where, can the Bills defense make some plays against the Eagles? Sure, I think they have some defenders and all that. But going up against Josh Allen, I think we're going to see more of the Josh Allen that we've seen for most of the year against this Eagles secondary. They have forced a good amount of turnovers. And I just do not trust the rest of the way through for the Buffalo Bills here. Can they be competitive? Sure, but it's a home game for the Eagles. The Bills, I think they're going to come down to earth a little bit here in this game, and I'll trust the Eagles with their rushing attack, their run defense, and forcing Josh Allen to throw, which caused more throws, more mistakes for the Eagles to win. So that's like Philadelphia minus 3.5, and Philadelphia straight up. Then the final two games, the Baltimore Ravens over the Los Angeles Chargers. The Los Angeles Chargers have won 124th quarter lead since 1970. They've lost 5 games this year within 3 points. The Ravens lead the league in sacks, even though we lost Mark Andrews to a significant ankle injury that apparently Harbaugh is not season-ending. And it's just one of those factors to where the Ravens have leading the league in sacks. They've been dominant defensively. The Chargers lost Joey Bosa. He's on the IR, so that's one less pass we have to deal with. If we double-team Khalil Mack, they really have nothing else there. Their pass defense is awful. They give up the second most yards per game through the air. Stone Smart, I'm going to shout out him real quick. He got his first touchdown of the year, of his career. And the Chargers, when they're 0-3 when they can't force a turnover. And the Chargers have only won 2 times at home since 1998 against the Ravens. So we go into LA or Los Angeles, San Diego, and we win most of these games against the Charger team, who, again, can put up a good fight. They have talent. They will be competitive on offense. They might make some plays. But if it comes down to a close game, are you going to trust John Harbaugh or Brandon Staley to close the game out? And I will take John Harbaugh every day of the week and twice on Sunday in that regard. So I think, could it be competitive? Look, Lamar has played very well in prime time, and we have now the number 1 seed in the AFC. We need to hold on to this momentum and ride it through the end of the year. So, every game is going to be paramount. But I'm going to take the Ravens here. Better coach team, not as injured, more consistent, better coaching, and just at the end of the day, if the game's close, I will just bet on the Chargers for choking another game, and the Ravens to hold on because the Chargers choking. So that's why I like Baltimore here, -4, and Baltimore straight up. And lastly, the Minnesota Vikings over the Chicago Bears. I am taking the Minnesota Vikings here because Daniil Hunter's second in the league in sacks. The Vikings just seem to have played better and consistently against weaker teams. Look, the Bears played better. They had 4 turnovers, 280 scrimmage yards on offense from Justin Fields. And the Vikings have given up on offense the most fumbles in the league. But at the end of the day, it's Matt Eberflus and this defense. And I think the Vikings offense, if they can get Justin Jefferson back by Monday, because I think, they were going to hopefully sit him out, I think that offensive jolt will be enough to move the ball against this very bad Bears defense, enough to win this game with Josh Dobbs. So I think Josh Dobbs does get his 3rd win. It's his first ever Monday night game and his 2nd primetime game of his career. I think of how he's been playing. I think he outplays Fields. And I think the Vikings win based off that momentum. Should be an interesting game because the Bears have gained some confidence in Fields in his last few starts. But I think the Vikings just have too much talent. If they bring Justin Jefferson back with this defense, I think the Vikings skull on to get a big primetime win to improve to 7-5 going into their bye. So that's like Minnesota here -3.5 and Minnesota straight up. So those are my picks for this week. Like, comment, rate, subscribe. Please check out the NFL YouTube Prognosticators page. And until next week, when I get my Week 13 predictions, good luck to all players, coaches, fellow prognosticators, and fantasy players. I know the fantasy season is winding down. And once again, happy Thanksgiving to everyone who celebrates and enjoy the family, food, and football. And until next time, everyone, this is Matt the Fanatic signing off. Until then, so long.